Okay. Mm. Is anybody here for the first time? Welcome. So we usually start with some prayers or some, but we try to get our minds to kind of settle down, first. Some of you did the meditation before the teachings, and so you're already there, but the rest of us aren't. So we try to catch up. So it's helpful to just take a moment and really bring your awareness to your body sitting here. That you're in this room. You're aware of the sensations in your body, the discomfort, the comfort, whatever it is, the temperature in the room, just this helps us bring us from whatever we're thinking about, the past, the future, to this moment right now. So just grounding ourselves in our experience of our body being here is helpful. Anything that helps us not have a mind that's going from conversation to conversation to conversation in our heads, from one thought to the next thought to another, is naturally calming. So one way to do that is to just kind of be present, maybe take a few deep breaths, experience that sensation of breathing, and settle in. And then maybe notice how your mind's doing. And if your mind's caught up in something that happened this morning or yesterday or last year, or it's caught up in what's going to happen next, keep trying to come back to, well, right now, I'm here in this room. No, dangers look like they're lurking, you know. So we can just relax. You chose to be here unless someone drags you here with them. There's some spare chairs in the back. We should probably move our spare chairs to that side. Do you think? So,
Standing room only. Standing room only.
right. It's a new year, can we tell? And Rod, if you want to sit on the cushions, you just sit like there. This is available. And so you might want to spend a moment just thinking, reflecting on why you decided to show up. Sort of like, what's in it for you? What was the plan? Curiosity is just a fine plan. Doesn't need to be more than that.
Of course, you were here.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Anne. For me, Sunday mornings have always been a Dharma booster shot. This way of kind of going, oh yeah, that's right. There's another way to look at things and a different perspective. And that different perspective kind of helps me cope with all the problems that happen, come up, complications, whatever, all the unpredictability of day-to-day life. So that's why I'm here. I find talking about the Dharma really helps with just my mental attitude all week long. So one of the things we like to begin with is a motivation. We like to just quietly within ourselves set an intention that fits with the reason we're here. Your intention may be to learn something new. So what does that mean? It means you need to listen, just so that you can learn something new. So it's not complicated. Perhaps you come to, just like me, for that Dharma booster shot, to be reminded that there are ways to deal with all the different states of mind that arise, that we experience kind of continuously. Some are helpful, many are not. And we do this not just to benefit ourselves. So this is an important part of the intention, is to get into the habit to remind ourselves that we're not doing this just for us. We're doing this for the people around us, for our relationships. And then we can kind of imagine that rippling out to benefit all the people around you. And in this way, it ripples out to benefit all living beings. So we'll begin with reciting the four immeasurables. Do I put it on screen or do you have it? Thanks, Nana.
Thanks, Nana.
I think Nana has shared her screen.
Oh. Oh, good. Thank you.
She's on it, as always. So, okay. Maybe hard to read.
Yeah.
I can't do much with that.
You put it on. Put it on then.
I'm sorry. Stop, Bob.
I was saying if Jack puts it on, it might be larger and easier to read.
Thank you, Donna. Nana's trying to enlarge it for us. So what it says, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So just reflect on that for a moment. May all sentient beings, that just means everyone. That includes animals, So not only to have happiness, but the causes of happiness. So we can learn something right there, that we can create the causes for happiness. The next line says, may all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Look who it is. I'm Mary Ann, Gina. Come on in. Again, this is what in Buddhism is sort of the definition of compassion. This wish for others to be free of suffering and be free of the causes of suffering. Whereas wishing them happiness is love in Buddhism. So it's that simple. It's not, it's not what we think about in terms of romantic love and all this kind of stuff. It's just this natural state that arises within us when we see people suffering or we see children delightfully happy and we're happy that they're happy, and we wish them happiness. And if someone's suffering, we wish they didn't have that, So we all have the basis for this. This is, we come this way. That may all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. So that's the happiness that the Buddha talked about in his teachings, about the fact that we can end our suffering, that we have the capacity to actually stop our suffering. That it's not like magic, not like that. It's about working with your mind. And through learning, really understanding how our mind is projecting all sorts of stuff out there onto things, and that we're misinterpreting it, And we don't understand how things actually exist anyway, and everything looks funny to me, that. But as we gain knowledge and skill and wisdom in these areas, we can actually reduce our suffering, kind of right away. And then over time, get better and better at that. And then if you become enlightened, you don't have any suffering, which makes sense. Enlightenment and suffering don't go together. And then may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So attachment is that quality that gets mixed in with love in Buddhism. So the way the word attachment is used in Buddhism, it's not exactly like the way we use it in psychology, in Western psychology, or as we talk about like children bonding with their parents, all that stuff. It's not like that. The attachment that they're referring to here is this clinging, craving kind of feeling about something that, you see something, you like it, you want to have it, and you want it to never change. And you want, it's a certain, like, it's all about you. This person's great because they make me happy. It's that kind of additional layer. And of course, this is how lots of our relationships start. I mean, it's not, this is, part of the deal. And the Buddha said it's because we misunderstand how we actually exist. And so this causes problems. So attachment is not like love. It's where we have some disturbing emotions arise in our mind that accompany our feelings of love. And then hatred, what does it say? Hatred for enemies. First of all, the fact that we see people as enemies is like just a condition for suffering. But hatred is a state of suffering all by itself. It's like when you have hatred, you have no, you don't need any help with suffering. It's just there. When your mind is filled with hatred or anger, that mind itself is a state of suffering. And we want to learn how to develop an equanimous, whatever that word is, response to everything, so that we're not, setting ourselves up with thinking that because something is pleasant to us, then our attachment should arise, or something's unpleasant to us, we should not, develop aversion, which could lead to hatred, which can lead to terrible actions and violence. Also, that's, so this is actually where our practice starts, is equanimity. This discovery that if we carefully monitor our minds, we will notice that we have these sort of reactions to whatever's going on, whether it's people or an event, that we have sort of a, like a preference, or the lack thereof preference. So if we want to work with that, because so much of our suffering arises from that reaction to whatever is happening. Okay, Donna, can we go to what's next? The refuge prayer. 98, page 98. Nana's in Portugal, so sometimes there's a time lag. Okay, now, yeah. So of course, don't recite this if you're not comfortable with it, but I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit we create through listening to the Dharma, may we become Buddhas in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may we become Buddhas in order to benefit all sentient beings. Go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Thanks, Nana. Oh. Mary. Oh, yeah. Chrissy. Sherry. Hi, Sherry. Christine. And I apologize, Sherry, because I haven't sent you the sand from the mandala because I think I packed it in one of my boxes. I packed up all my stuff. And so I've misplaced it.
That's quite all right. I'm sure one day I'll get it and it'll be a pleasant surprise. I will have forgotten all about it and then it'll be like, oh wow. Thank you though. Thank you.
So, oh, all right. So this is a new year. What do we traditionally do in this country in a new year?
Resolutions.
Resolutions. But one good thing about this habit it affords a condition for us to, think about, reflect on things. Do we have any more chairs?
Yes.
I really think you should just bring them down to this end.
Yeah.
Because
From now on, we'll
hey,
just.
Graciela, I didn't see you there.
Now we'll just put all the chairs out.
Yeah, over there. We won't need them next to this, but that's how it is. So, resolution time. How do we come up with resolutions?
We're unhappy with something.
Maybe.
Things we want to accomplish, like a to-do list or things like that.
We're very goal oriented, aren't we? So, yeah. But what do we have to do to make a resolution?
Reflection.
Huh?
Reflect.
We need to reflect on how things are and what are we doing and what might need changing. That's the key piece. It's not the end result. It's this process of going, what's good in my life and I might want to expand. What habits that I do are not so great and I wish I would just, abandon altogether, but if nothing else, reduce it. So it's a way of matching what's going on in our minds and our actions and our speech to, what we'd like to see, how we would prefer to act and speak. And if there's something that seems, I really have taken on this idea, not always looking for the worst in people, and I feel better because of it. So I'm going to do more of that. It can be, whatever. Oh, I tend to eat too much sugar. That's me, and it makes me feel terrible. So maybe, I want to abandon that entirely, So what do I need to help myself get there? So, with something like that, what's the kind of thing I probably need to reflect on? See, now I'm using y'all for therapists.
Our actions.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Our actions.
Well, first of all, obviously, if I find myself not feeling well when I eat sugar, there's cause and effect there, right? Okay. I might want to ask myself, why do I keep doing something that makes me feel so lousy? Because I'm creating that problem. Nobody else is creating that problem. That's entirely my issue. So if I want to do something about it, I have to figure out what steps I need to take in order to be able to follow through on it. And so most of that involves more reflection. I need to really understand what's going on in my mind when I reach for that cookie or, popsicle or whatever. And try to nail it, find where the discomfort is in my mind that is, supporting this desire to feed myself something that's going to make me feel miserable. And this is, so this is all, it's all mine. It's not really the actions. The actions cause problems, but it's the mind that kicks them all off. So getting really familiar with what's going on in our minds to recognize when we're rationalizing, oh, it won't hurt. I'll feel a little better with that hit of whatever it is that it does, dopamine or something, since my sugar usually takes the form of chocolate. So, you know, but we want to recognize that we initiate these actions with the way we think. You know. So this is why that equanimity is so important. You know, if we, so like say if I feel hunger, if I have equanimity when I open my refrigerator, I might go towards the broccoli and not open the freezer and go towards the ice cream.
Should we have the equanimity before or after the second bowl of ice cream?
I think, yes, you know, maybe tomorrow. This is the problem, isn't it? But so this is a process of recognizing that I associate sweet things with what? Pleasure, satisfaction, with, you know, a Band-Aid, you know, oh, we'll just ease my mind a little bit here, blah, blah, blah. And it's a lie, isn't it? It's a total lie. It's not true on any level. It makes me feel sick. You know? So my perception of the cookies or the ice cream or the cake or whatever it is totally false. It's wrong. It's illogical. There's just nothing right about it. So if I look at my mind and realize I'm telling myself lies again, that can help me remember there's a consequence for me to follow through on that particular kind of action. So the same is true if we always respond to a conversation that, you know, we have with a relative or a friend or something that we kind of go, oh God, not this again, you know, that we might be setting up the conditions for that to recur. You know, according to the Buddha, everything that we experience, we've kind of created the cause for somewhere from our habits of mind. And then our habits of speech and physical actions that follow that line. And just because we don't know what we're doing, it's not because, you know, we may have this disconnect between how we respond to others and to situations and what those others in those situations do to us. We think it happens to us, you know, when in fact, we're part of the equation. You know, we're not separate from what happens to us. We're part of the chain of events. So how we respond to things is one way we can kind of break that chain between an event and a negative reaction to that event. So that also means we need to recognize that there's choice in there somewhere. So it's not that someone, that of course we must respond with anger or disgust or whatever negative state of mind that arises with some negative condition. We have decided somewhere along the way in our development of our habits that that's the appropriate response. And maybe we learned it from others, we may have noticed that others do it, but a lot of us are just born with these habits. We, come that way. So my brother came with generosity. That was a much better trait than what I came with. So, it's just, a process of recognizing that we're interconnected with others. We're interconnected with our environment, that we are part, all of us are part of the conditions we're experiencing. We are all part of the condition that said all the empty chairs were over there. And everybody had to crawl through everybody to get to a chair. We're part of the condition that this is a small room. We're all part of these conditions. It's not just, happening to us. And that takes a lot of reflection. But it's so much easier when we break it down to our own experiences through the day. So that, like, if you walk in here and we've already started class, you're a little bit late, and there's no chair readily available, the discomfort you might feel is something that you are doing. It's not that we are making you feel uncomfortable. It is your response to a particular type of condition, that, you find uncomfortable. That little gut reaction of like, oh no, and you just want to hide over here, sit on the floor, or leave, So but we have this feeling like, oh man, like I do, like we should have put the chairs over there, Life isn't predictable that way. We cannot account for every possibility of conditions. You can't, like we might know that on the first of the year, when there's a class starting, that more people will come. So maybe we should plan for that. But then if we cram the place with chairs and everything and nobody shows up, or 8 people show up and they sit one over here, one over there, one over here, it's kind of awkward for me to try to keep up. So, you just can't plan for these things. But if we're comfortable, no matter what we enter into, if we come into a situation and we're kind of, okay, I knew I was late. So when I walk in, people are going to all turn their heads towards me. That's just the price you pay for being late, and it's okay. Trust me, being late to a teaching is better than not showing up. You have no chance to learn anything if you don't show up or get that Dharma booster shot or whatever, It's like, okay, so you're late. Oh, well, sometimes it's not even that you left your house late. It's just that you got the train or, whatever, but being able to find some within understanding that when we, walk into a condition like that and we go, oh, I'm uncomfortable, we can let that go by going, it's not a problem. I'm welcome regardless. Or even if I'm not welcome, doesn't matter. They can all frown at me, but, there's nothing wrong with, I'm late, So I'm always early, which is really annoying to all the people who tend to be late. It's like you can't win. So, but this understanding, like that little bit of discomfort, how can that affect you a few minutes later? If you just keep, thinking about, I can't believe I had to walk over and everybody had to get me a chair and everything stopped. Da, 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 da.
It's a distraction from.
No, it's a distraction, yeah. Do you think that can affect the rest of your mind throughout the whole thing, whole experience? Especially if you dwell on it?
A narrative that you create is causing suffering.
Yep. And it's not the narrative that's causing suffering. It's your narrative that's causing suffering. It's not somebody else. It's not a story you pick up. It is the way we're thinking. We don't let things go. We might feel like, I'm not supposed to be late, or it's rude to be late, or da 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 da, and on we go. So this can happen at parties, this can happen at business meetings, this can happen, with plans with the kids, this can just, it just happens. But we don't want to take that moment of discomfort and make it last the rest of the day or the rest of the hour. But we can.
Yeah.
So what does that involve? What do we have to reflect on to let that go? Yeah.
So I was neither early nor late. When I sat here, one of the last chairs, I turned off my ringer and it was just 11. And I said, oh, I'm on time. So what I started to think about was that skillful? So that's kind of my mantra for all of it, because it kind of removes all the judgmentalness. And I asked myself and I said, well, if everybody came here on time at 11, it would be a big kerfuffle. Everyone would have to have chairs. So I started reflecting on, well, is being just on time
Enough.
is skillful enough?
Yeah.
So maybe I really do need to come, quote, early so that I'm a part of it functioning correctly. So just asking myself, is it skillful?
And what could make it more skillful? So like you said, it's like when the teaching started at 11 and you show up at 11, what has happened? Just like you said, teachings don't start at 11. So yeah, when the teachings start at 11, it's good to come before then. Enough time to get here, find a chair, get settled, get your beverage, whatever it is, go to the bathroom, just, to be able to, so it's just, and this is not to pick on the people who get here at 11 or at 5 after 11, but it is one of those clues we have that part of our discomfort comes from our decision, if it was in fact a decision, to get here right on time and to think about what does right on time mean. Traditionally, in the Tibetan protocol kind of thing, to get here on time would mean about 15 minutes earlier before the teacher, in case the teacher's early, in case, because the idea is that you're here for the teachings. If you want the teachings, provide a good condition for that to happen. Like not having to disrupt things by being late. But this could get very judgy, So I will repeat, better to be late to a teaching than not show up at all. So, stuff happens, right? And our attitude about it is very, very important. And one of those things is forgiving ourselves for being late. To just kind of like, and that doesn't require blaming someone else for being late. We don't have to get mad at our kids for making us late, or mad at the traffic, or mad at those, I don't know, those other people, the ones that get in our way, that we can just take responsibility for our actions and then be okay. It doesn't say some deep, sinister thing about who we are. That was our musical interlude. Thank you for a nice ringtone.
It was early, but I forgot to turn my phone.
And this is the thing, isn't it? There are all these lists.
Samsara, you have to love it.
Well, samsara. Okay, so that's what we call in Buddhism this cycle of life, uncontrolled cycle of birth and death. And what it really is this uncontrolled cycle of problems. It's just, they just keep going, the complications of life, blah, blah, blah. It's always happening, and we have this kind of attachment to it going right. And that's the first condition we create for our own suffering. Because that just doesn't happen. Yeah, Graciela.
I was thinking today that it is also an opportunity for me to notice how kind people are, how thoughtful, how caring for each other. So to me, it's heartwarming. it doesn't have to be that way, but.
But it can be that
they're
way.
Feeling welcomed even though.
Yeah, that's the choice part of equanimity. I can look at this as harsh judgment for me in my own mind. I can create that. Oh, what an idiot! I'm walking in late. I should have just not come up when I knew I was going to be late. Blah 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 blah. Blah. Who knows? You know. And the other people in the room could be going, oh God, another person. You know, blah blah blah. So, or you can do exactly what you did, and you can look at the positive side. That people were quite quick to try to help. You know, quite welcoming. Yeah, come on down. You know, kind of thing. And that's good news about how people treat each other, you know? So, and we can look for that, or we can look in our own head for whatever scolding we like to give ourselves, you know, and hang on to that. Or we can, you know, kind of just enjoy this moment of being taken care of. You know? And I can tell you which I prefer. I prefer everybody takes care of each other. So from my vantage point, it's like, oh, this is good news. You know. So it really can help if we notice, if we have habits of mind that tend to bring us down, tend to increase our sense of inferiority or, you know, insecurity, or this feeling of not good enough, this, you know, or just kind of like unwelcome, I don't fit in, all that kind of stuff. Or we can, you know, let ourselves look at things from a different angle. You know, recognize maybe it's my thoughts that are making me so uncomfortable, not the situation. You know. And this we have some control over. It may not feel like it, you know, because it takes some time to recognize that if we just get familiar with the way we think and that we notice what we're thinking, that we can interrupt the habit of drawing some conclusion that isn't good for us to draw. You know, if you have the habit of always looking at the negative, then you can kind of go, oh, look what I'm doing. I'm looking at the negative. That's not going to help. You know, and choose to let that go, or at least not follow that thought by going over it again and again and again in the mind. This, I read something good today on the idea of renunciation. We talk about renunciation in Buddhism. And Alex Berzin and other translators don't like the way that, whatever the Tibetan word is, which I don't know, you know, that translation into renunciation. They prefer the translation determination to be free. And what you're determined to be free from is suffering. You know. And so you have to know what's causing your suffering. And according to the Buddha, it's our misunderstanding of how we exist, how others exist. We misunderstand that we have habits of mind that are changeable. We think those aren't changeable. You know, it's just natural to feel this way or that way or da 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 da. It's just what I do. We think that we have some kind of fixed nature. You know, oh, I'm just that kind of person. I'm just this way or that way. So I can't change it. So I'm stuck. You know, the Buddha says, oh, that's not true. We change all the time. In fact, we change every moment. Anybody have the difficulty when you try to sit quietly or meditate or just sit quietly to reflect? And what Jack's going, yep. What problem you identify?
Just getting my mind to shut up.
Oh, to shut up. Yes, yes.
Mine is I should be doing something else. I should be doing it. And I know that I'll do my work better if I meditate, but
Oh, you like me and sugar.
yeah, but I'm so anxious about doing my job that I just,
Okay, so let's blame the job.
yeah.
Yeah. This is a habit we have. We look outside of ourselves to pin the blame. First of all, we don't need blame. Blame's kind of useless. We need to be able to figure out the cause and effect. What's this chain of events? And can I interrupt it anywhere and stop it? You know, so one of them is the simple fact of going, yeah, you're lying to yourself again. You know, so you kind of like make a determination when you sit down to meditate. I'm going to sit down for 5 minutes. And when the thought arises that I need to get up and do something else, I'm going to ignore that suggestion, you know, and stay put. And that is how you can spend the entire 5 minutes. That's okay. Eventually they'll be boring. And what you want to give up is the thought that I should do something else, not the thought that I should stay put. And so what do we need to do that?
Establish calm abiding.
What?
Establish calm abiding.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay.
To get to calm abiding, you have to do this.
Transform our mind.
We
They
need
just decide to do it.
you need to decide. You need to use the reasoning. We all have these fabulous reasoning minds. This is why a human reaper is considered so valuable in Buddhism, is that we have a very sophisticated brain. Try telling a mosquito to sit quietly on the you know, you can't even do it, you know, because those wings make noise. It's just like, you know, a hummingbird will fall out of the sky and, you know, this would be bad. So, you know, we need to understand that just like everything else we've learned to do, learning to reflect on our mind, to notice what's going on in our mind, to be able to decide, oh, maybe I'll change what I'm, you know, my approach, all takes practice. And it takes reasoning, just like we decide that, oh, it makes sense that I'm angry at blah, blah, blah. They mistreat me, they da 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 da, blah, you know, you go on and on and on. So you're rehearsing constantly why your habit of mind is good or makes sense. And if you don't go into that place that says, yeah, but I'm miserable, you know, this anger is making me, you know, miserable, you'll just keep going with this storyline. If you go, oh, wait a minute, if I didn't have to feel this way, things would be better. And you don't have to feel this way. Feeling this way is a result of an incorrect logic we've been using all our lives that say if you get something unpleasant, the appropriate response is to be angry about it or miffed.
My friend, I told my friend I had a $5 problem. It just kept on bothering me. Couldn't focus on meditating. Said, that's okay. The problem's every day. Just put it over in the other room. And that happened. It's there. But here, this is our time to meditate. That's over there. And the meditation is here.
So this is that process of finding some reasoning to help yourself. Like one of the things I had to do was, you know, you have a notebook, like you might need this, you know, and when some recurring thought just keeps pulling you away from your reflective time, you write it down. And then the next time it comes up, you go, it's written down. You know, I can't forget it. You know, it's there. You have to convince yourself that it's safe to try to change this behavior. You know, so you need, and the only way you can do that is to know what's going on in your mind. You know, if you're really worried about, oh, I should be working, you know, Or you're really worried about, oh, I wonder what the kids are up to, So you need to figure out how to address those issues in a way that is safe. You don't lock your door when your kids are running amok, through the house, and just say, I've got to get away. If there's no adult supervision, that might not be safe. But it's this process of going, okay, I've been looking at my life and I realized that I spend an awful lot of time worried, or I spend an awful lot of time disgusted with the behavior of others, or I spend an awful lot of time always thinking about what I, wish I could be doing instead of this. None of those states feel good. So we want to look at them and say, can I do something about this? And one of these things is trying to bring up, like, okay, most of us need jobs. So we can't just walk out of our job just because we're sick of our boss and da 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 da, But we don't have to be miserable all day long. What can we think about instead?
Ice cream.
Yeah, that's good.
Reasons.
Benefits of shared
The benefits of work.
whatever it provides us or whatever we give the process.
The reason why you do the work. Oh, I need a paycheck. That can be it. I tell you, most of the world works at jobs and all they care about is getting that paycheck. The job's not interesting. The job's not, the job might even be very hard physical work. But they need to get paid. They need money because that's the method we've come up with for an exchange for food and shelter and clothing and all those things. So if we hate our jobs, we can think about, oh, can I, maybe there's some skills I could gain to get a different kind of job, maybe that's a possibility. But in the meantime, I have to do this work because I get paid for it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's participating in how it works. This is, how it works. So we just need to look at how we sabotage ourselves with our mind, our habits of thought. How we increase our suffering. And then we need to come up with a laid out plan of, why would I want to change this? And then you got to think about, how can I change this? So has anybody developed a habit in their life?
Yeah.
So if your first thought is, I can't do that, it's not true. We all have developed new habits in our lives. We've even developed habits that we didn't want to learn how to do, like, brush your teeth, or take a bath. Like, we can't imagine now not wanting to brush our teeth or take a bath, but I can tell you when you were a little child, you probably weren't thrilled with this rule. And you lied to your parent. Oh, yeah, I brushed my teeth. So we even learn, even when we don't want to do it, we can do it. Even when it's hard to do, we've been able to do it. What we need to do is start valuing our state of mind and recognize how important it is to ourselves, obviously, and to those around us. Taking care of our minds is probably our most important job. So we have to value that. So we have to think when we sit down to meditate, yeah, there's work I need to do, but it's also valuable for me to take care of my mind. And that's the work I'm doing right now. It is valuable to be able to pay attention to where you're thinking so that you can recognize if you're following trains of thought that are harming you. So this determination to be free. is the, this is how Alex Berzin puts it. It's to look at our problems honestly and bravely and seeing how ridiculous it is to keep living with them, to decide, I don't want to continue like this. I have had enough. I am bored with them. I am fed up with them. I must get out. So it's the willingness to give up our old disturbing patterns of thought, speech, and behavior. So this is what we want to be determined to be free from. And so that's something that we can think about as we think about resolutions or how we want this year to go. Is do we want to keep holding on to habits that don't actually work well for us? You know? And we don't have to have a goal like I must fix this by such and such a date. Just working on, I really want to be free of this. And setting that intention, you know, in the morning. Okay, when I go to work today, I'm not going to focus on everything I hate about work. You know, that may mean that I have to not think all day long. It's just, you know, I'm just not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on my paycheck. You know, I'm going to focus on whatever, you know, there you might have some friends at work, you know, but you find something else to do with your mind, you know. But first, and you accept that you will fail again and again and again. This is very important to the process of change. Is you already have a habit, and now you're trying to overcome it. You know, so you know that tsunami of habit. You have to push it back. You know, that's hard. It takes effort. It takes time. It takes practice. So when, you know, like this morning, I was, you know, getting more and more nervous. My neck started hurting, head started to hurt. And I'm going, oh, this should not surprise me. So I always get really nervous before teaching, really nervous. And, you know, laughing about it, you know, makes the headache go away. You know, it's just, it's like, you know, and recognizing, okay, I haven't made much progress in this area, you know, and not, you know, whatever the word would be, not make myself feel like, you know, oh, forget it, you know, you fail, you know, just, you know, get out of here. But it's just, it's this ability to be able to recognize where you are, accept that lovingly, you know, and choose to keep towards moving towards change. You know, it's a reminder of sort of why we want to change. But it's really okay if we haven't changed yet. Even just thinking about it is shifting the way we think. And that's really the whole point. Because just like you might have hated to take a bath when you were a kid, and now you can't imagine having that attitude, that's the same could be true of our mental habits now. You know, if you can't imagine not always looking for the worst in people, that doesn't mean you can't change that. You can, there'll be a day when you can look back going, I mean, you know, I don't think that way anymore. So we want to start looking at how we respond to problems, you know, events that we find, you know, that we're just kind of like, do I have to deal with this? And see what it tells us, how it informs us about our habits of thought. Be curious, not judgmental. Just kind of, oh, okay, that's interesting. You know, maybe you know, maybe you take it, you know, you blame yourself for anything that happens. Maybe you blame others. Or very quickly shift from blaming yourself to trying to find someone else to blame. Maybe, you know, it's just that you feel like you're incapable of handling whatever's come up. I think that you're all alone and you know, you know, and make up stories about your existence that aren't helpful. Questions. I'm doing a lot of talking. Yes.
Who's the author that you mentioned?
I'm,
Who's the author that you mentioned?
oh, it was Alex Berzin from studyingbuddhism.com.
I have a better understanding of attachment than I do aversion. Can you talk about aversion?
Okay. So aversion is just simply that state of mind that can arise from when we meet with a condition we find unpleasant, undesirable, dissatisfactory. It can be minor, it can be major, and then if we keep thinking about, oh, I shouldn't have to put up with this, that is where we're kicking in to this sort of self cherishing or self-centered attitude of thinking like, why is this happening to me? So we want to pay attention if our thoughts go that way. Like it shouldn't happen to me. Like, oh, I'm so special that problems shouldn't arise, or don't they know by now where my cushion is? I mean, really. I've been here, what, 9 years? Come on, people. So, it's this ridiculous attitude of putting ourselves, it's like, above everybody else. And that everybody should know what you need and want, desire, and da da da. And then they should act on that. I mean, there's so many things in there of lists that others have to do in order for me to be okay. It's crazy making. So aversion is that like you're faced with something that you really wish you weren't being, whatever. Many things arise throughout the day that we don't like, right? I mean, like you just walk in outside and you go, oh gosh, it's humid today, but you quickly just move on, we're not, unless you're me and you kind of keep going, oh my God, it's hot. Why am I in Florida? So then, so we want to notice that sometimes when we meet with some condition we don't like, we keep bringing it up to our mind. This shouldn't happen. We need to fix this. And we go complain to somebody, with the weather, good luck. But, it's this, we turn it into a big deal. When we turn our dissatisfaction into a big deal, we're making it permanent. We're making it, and it can't be permanent. It's going to change. But we, in that moment, we're feeling like it's too heavy to carry. And it's so bad. And then we usually, if there are people involved, part of that condition, we can develop aversion to them. It's their fault. It's their attitude. Oh, I just can't listen to them. I can't listen to their politics. I can't listen to their, voice when they sing. I can't listen, whatever it is. So we just, and from that aversion, eventually, if you think about it, if you look at world leaders, that aversion can become a war. You're not kowtowing to me enough. I'm just going to take over. You're not, I want your land because you have what, all the grain or all the oil or all the blah, blah, blah. So, I'm just going to, and we tell ourselves that we're justified, and it's stemming from this aversion. Somewhere along the way, we decide that this quality of this condition is at fault. And I have the right to eliminate it. Now, granted, most of us don't, our aversion doesn't get that far, But if we practice it life after life, it could. So that aversion is that just sense, the aversion itself isn't the unpleasant feeling that we have when we meet conditions we're not wild about, It's just a feeling, it's just that, oh, unpleasant. It's not your preference, so it's unpleasant. Aversion is when we take that unpleasantness and make it somehow this real thing, that someone's doing to you. So then we develop sources of aversion. Yeah.
So the aversion is imputing the characteristic that an outside object is going to make me suffer, just like
attachment is imputing quality to an outside object. I think give me question. It's
So-
the opposite side of the
Yeah, they're opposite sides of the coin. In fact, we could say aversion is all about attachment. I'm attached to just meeting conditions I like. So it's just another kind of form of attachment. But it's, it's easier to think in terms of, to distinguish. Another way to say that is that, we have a feeling of pleasant or unpleasant, and then we exaggerate the qualities of whatever that condition is. For attachment, we exaggerate the pleasantness of, ooh, it's always going to be good whenever I have that cheesecake, blah, blah, blah. Aversion is we exaggerate the negative qualities. Oh, this is always going to be bad. This is bad, blah, blah, blah. This is bad. This is bad. This is bad. And then it's as if, something, it's like sometimes, do you ever have those years where technology just doesn't cooperate with you, and it's like just opening your computer feels like, oh, this is a condition for suffering. So, and of course, that's not true. What's the condition for suffering? Yeah, totally. And that's true for everything. And we need to start recognizing that. It isn't that we can't be physically hurt. We can, but thinking that the story we create about why we shouldn't be the one hurt is a bigger problem. It's like, I don't know. It's a good example of that. It's like when we project onto someone some really negative motivation, like say someone bumps into you and you knock and you drop everything you're holding, your grocery bag or whatever. And then you project onto that person who bumped into you some sort of evil. You did that on purpose, and we just, we make it like accidents don't happen, or at least not to me, because they shouldn't happen to me. So we're elevating us up above everybody else, thinking that these, I shouldn't have to put up with this, and blaming whoever's involved in the condition, as opposed to just accepting that things happen all the time. Accidents happen, we're of the nature to be harmed. We don't have an armadillo skin, we don't have the ability to fly away in danger, we can be hurt. Someone hits us, it can hurt. We get a shot and it can hurt, for days. So we just have to, that the lack of acceptance that sometimes things are unpleasant gets in the way of our equanimity. And we just start running with it. We make stories up about how, this should never have happened to me. And they didn't even apologize. Can you believe that? They act like it's my fault. I was somehow in their way. I mean, but you have to watch. The next time you get indignant, you want to think, what am I thinking? What is it that's going on here? There are times when, like I'm driving along and, you hit a traffic jam or something. And there's a part of me that truly believes, why are you in my way? Oh, it's like, I don't have time for this. Yeah, it's just the stupidest thing. But that's that. We have a habit of thinking that somehow, if people knew how special we were, we would we would never be mistreated or have any kind of suffering. And it's just not true. People aren't actively walking around every day in their ordinary lives going, "Ooh, I see somebody I want to make sure they suffer something." That's something, because that makes it all about you again. This attitude that we're somehow the center of everybody's universe, not just our own, is constantly putting expectations on how other people treat us. Like somehow, don't you know I'm here? And, like, can't you tell I'm upset? And why haven't you asked? And why aren't you? We need to understand that that's part of how we suffer. Is we're making up these stories that if we really look at them, don't make any sense at all. And that's why if we start to look, we can start seeing the unskillfulness, the illogic, the, sabotaging way that we think and go, well, this is, it's ridiculous. Of course there's traffic. I'm part of it. Duh. So we just, we need to understand that this habitual reaction to pleasant and unpleasant, we want more pleasant, we want less unpleasant, is, first of all, not practical, but it is dictating how we feel all day long. If we grab one of those sensations, that experience of unpleasant or pleasant, and make it important, that can drive our whole day. But if we just understand, it's just, that's part of life. Some things are pleasant, and most of it's about preference, isn't it? You can sit down to a meal that you just think is to die for, and somebody else can sit down to the same meal and not like it, because it's just preference. It doesn't say anything about the person, you or the other person. It has nothing to do with anything. And so we want to start responding to whatever that pleasant or unpleasant experience is with more equanimity, recognizing this is how it is. This is we just need to accept that our lives are full of these moments. Every moment of mine has a feeling attached to it. It's part of the experience of that mental moment. Most are neutral. If they say in Buddhism, they say, 3 fingers, there's 65 thoughts in a finger snap. That's how fast our mind's going. The good news is you're using your mind to watch your mind. It's equally fast. Mostly it's about being able to take the time, give yourself the space, the mental space to see what's happening. So these people who manage to succeed and being able to quiet their minds down for hours at a time and be able to see precise, they can practically parse each, finger snap into its 65 moments. These are highly trained yogis, not this one. This does not qualify for me. I had a point and I've distracted myself from it.
65.
Yeah. My. No. We don't have to get to that point to start seeing how our mind works. We can have a much more superficial understanding, but the more we see it, we will start noticing more and more nuances to it. Is we'll notice that, sometimes I react like this to it, and other times I don't. The same feeling I'm having, but I'm not. So what is that about? Oh, it's because my friend did it. And so I cut my friend slack. But this person over here, I don't like to begin with. I immediately start adding more reasons why not to like them. We want to become aware of that. Because now we're creating stories about people that are not true. We're adding to this, my idea of this person is correct. I know why I feel unpleasant around them. And you feel unpleasant around them because it doesn't meet your preference. That's it. This moment, and it passes. Because the next day when they bring you a piece of dessert, oh, I made this cake last night. I brought you a piece. All of a sudden they're not so unpleasant. Because our pleasant, unpleasant has everything to do with our perception. It's totally from our side. It's all about us. 100% about us. So all it does is tell us more about us. But we're constantly shifting it to saying it means something about someone else. And we make mistaken judgments. We develop aversion. We develop attachment. When attachment really gets dangerous is when it gets to the point of craving. And you can more easily see how craving is a disturbing emotion. So it's like that when you go, oh my goodness, I have to go out and buy some cookies because I won't have any tonight. And da 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 da. Anybody ever used to smoke? Remember that feeling? I'm sorry, I have to go buy a carton now. Because at 11, the store's closed. It's just like, this is back in the day when stores closed. So there was a time for that. I don't know, a long time ago. So, but this, so where we feel like, oh, you're miserable until you get that itch scratched. You just gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta have it. So you can see, addicts, I'm addicted to sugar. You can see that just taking over, and that you can see that it's making them miserable. They might not be able to see it's making them miserable because all they can see is that if they at least get that hit of it, they'll feel better right away. But we can see they're just keeping the cycle going. That is the trouble with attachment. If we keep having a distorted view of our experiences, it can lead to these states of grasping after them. Or with aversion, it can make situations into where we see people as enemies. And we have to do something about that. It's not enough we have to coexist with them. We want to get rid of them. And that will never solve the problem. We all know that. Deep down, we know that we got rid of every person we don't like. Guess what we do?
Find another person we don't like.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, they're not as good as this person. We just shift our standards. I mean, it's just like amazing. You can see this in teenage cliques. With the little cliques that hang together. High school or middle school. It's like, oh, how quickly it changes. And if we really look, we can start to see that the very sense of aversion is a suffering state of mind. It doesn't feel good to have it. So we might want to let go of it. This does not mean that people haven't harmed us. It doesn't mean, it just means that we can choose whether we let that damage us. That if we keep responding to everybody as if they were this person who way back when slugged me at, during a discussion. I don't know, I'm trying to make something up. So, we just need to understand that, yes. And why does that happen? Because they are living just like we are, with the same kind of minds, with the same kind of distorted perceptions, with all these projections, looking for just, pleasantness, no unpleasantness. And none of us know what we're doing. So things can just blow up. And it takes time. It's a development of habits. It's just according to the Buddha, this isn't our only life. So we've been creating these habits life after life. So you can see it even in children. So, okay. I did ask for questions and then I just started talking again. Yes, Mary.
Yes, it's so nice to see you again. Welcome home. Listen, I want to share an experience. I've talked before about how I cannot meditate. It's just, I'm restless and all this other stuff. Well, my friend Gisela gave me a YouTube video, and this Buddhist monk was talking about meditation. And this has changed I've been meditating for a month now, and I'm excited about it. So I want to share it with everyone. I have the practice of getting angry sometimes, and I can't seem to, I just seem to say things without being able to pause and
Now you found a method.
so I found something, and it has to do with meditation. This monk said that people get caught up in wanting to be calm and wanting to have no thoughts, but he said that's not the reason for meditation. The thoughts are there for practice. He said, be grateful you have these thoughts, because what it allows you then is you catch yourself, you pause, you go back, and you practice being with the breath, being in the now. And that's what I need when I feel the anger, is to be able to catch it and have that pause and go back to realizing the other person is
That sound
suffering or
familiar?
whatever. Anyway, he said it changes the pathways in your brain after just I forget how many days of meditating. So it made me so excited, and I've been doing it, and I don't miss a day. And anyway, I feel now that I am actually changing some of my thinking about it, and I catch it quicker. So I want to
I
share.
rejoice. Who's the monk?
I'll send you the video. I'll send you the little YouTube, because I don't know.
Hey, you can't spell it either or pronounce it, right? Neither can I. So there we go.
Okay.
But this is a common problem, is that we think when we're trying to calm our minds or quiet our minds, that we won't think. Good luck with that. That's what the job mind does. I mean, so that isn't the point. The point is to do what you've chosen to do. So say you want to sit down and think about compassion, or you want to sit down and reflect on, I don't know, something else. What you're trying to do is discipline your mind to stay on topic. Or you just say you're curious about what's goes on in your mind. So you just want to look. But as soon as we start following thoughts, they now become a story, then you've kind of quit looking. You're not experiencing, this thought. Then you get caught up in a story, and now you've got a movie to watch. And so that's a little different. So you want to try not to do that. You want to be able to do exactly what Mary's talking about, is use it as the opportunity to go, oh, that thought's not so skillful. I think I'll pause here. So it doesn't overwhelm us and take over. That's the whole point of pausing. Yep.
I recently had an experience where I was just feeling very sorry for someone, and it had me spiraling. And I came across a quote that said, compassion does not require participation. And that has really helped me try and, I still have compassion for the person, but I don't have to let it overwhelm me. And I thought I'd ask you if you'd ever heard that, or if you believe that there is a place where you should just, step back, or it's kind of hard to find that fine line.
Mentally, we should always step back. Why do we need to step back when some strong state of mind arises?
Because we're creating that reaction.
Yeah, and we're not necessarily reliable in that moment. Because in that moment, when you say, you're caught up in this compassion, you hate seeing them suffering, there's a lot of that about you in there, that this suffering, is horrible to even sit with, that they're suffering and I can't fix it, so whatever, so that's in there. So that's where we need to step back in order to let wisdom arise. Because we can't fix people's situations. We can't, and we certainly, if they're creating their own self-suffering, like me and sugar or something, I'm the only one who can change that. So there's nothing you can do. So being able to recognize I have no role here, but I can use this moment to develop my heart, to develop my sense of compassion, and this wish that people were free of suffering, and this wish that they had the wisdom to know how to change it. So it's a process of we don't want to suppress our feelings of compassion or love or you know, whatever. But we don't want to mistake it for, oh, I should fix this because most of the time we can't fix it. You know, it's just like when a child, you know, your child is upset or something, and really the only thing you can do is give them a hug, you know, so you give them a hug. That's not always appropriate with adults. It's not even appropriate with teenagers, you know, so, you know, there's this way in which you know, we can just sometimes just sitting there and not running away while someone expresses their suffering, you know, can be giving them something. But if we know we're also just allowing them to keep up this habit of rehearsing whatever the illogic of their mind's telling them, you know, then we want to, okay, that's enough. And back off. So we have to have wisdom. And most of the time we don't have it. So we have to pause and make sure before we act that we have some wisdom. Yeah.
So then sometimes the act of compassion is the stepping back.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Whether it's
yeah.
thought of in the other situation or not, but the compassion
Yep.
response is that stepping back.
That you step back. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Can I bring in some neuroscience?
We don't really have the time. Can you
Oh.
save it for like it's 12:25?
Um,
So we need to do our prayers.
so neurons that fire together wire together.
Right.
And
That's
I don't know
the
if anyone
shorthand.
knows here the neuroscientist Buddhist Rick Hansen. He speaks
Yes.
every Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's written
Yep.
Buddha Brain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
We'll talk about that next week.
okay.
So let it go. So that's a good reminder. So yes, Rick Hansen's Greg does a Wednesday night meditation every week that you can with questions afterwards. I forgot to talk about what's coming up. So on Wednesday nights, we're doing Discovering Buddhism, which is a 2-year program developed by the FPMT to go over all the aspects of the path from where we are now to, you know, enlightenment. So it's, you know, so it's for people who are really interested in the path in Buddhism from the Tibetan perspective, you know, and so we go much more into it. And the first course is on the mind. So it's pretty good course no matter what, you know, whether you like Buddhism or not, because it's just all about this process of observing your mind and trying to recognize how we can work with it and the potential it has. So hence the name. But and then I don't know whether it'll actually happen on Friday nights because I found out that Monday nights are now free. But I had an idea for those people who really don't want to do 2 years or they've already done it. You know, they've already explored more deeply the Buddhist practice. You know, that it's about the whole, it's an overview for the next 3 months to do an overview of the entire path to see how all the pieces fit together. Because sometimes it's like a giant puzzle. And sometimes we don't realize that when we're dealing with this piece of the puzzle, we've forgotten about this piece of the puzzle. And so we don't, you know, we don't understand how they work together, you know. So, you know, I thought it'd be fun to have a discussion about how these pieces fit. So you can, you know, and so it's it's an opportunity to ask questions about all sorts of stuff on every aspect of the path. But so right now it's set up on Friday evenings. All these are both on, you know, Zoom as well as in person, right?
Yes.
You know, so, you know, if nobody shows up, you know, it may be just a Zoom class. But we're open flexibility. So, anything else to? I can't read that because I had to turn my head.
Nobody's scared.
Well, I don't know. What do you, why,
Oh,
that's the
okay.
calendar.
Yeah, that was the overview. Tuesday nights, Venerable Tendron
Right.
is going to be doing a Zoom class, but some of us are going to be showing up. And
So that's also here.
yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So all of these classes are hybrid. You know, you can show up in person or online. Okay.
Is Friday night switching to Monday night?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk. Those who want to come on Friday, you know, if they want to have this class, show up for Friday night and we'll talk about it. You know, because Friday night's a weird night.
What time?
7. All of our
7 to
classes start
8:30.
at 7. 7 to 8:30.
And it starts this Friday. Starts this Friday?
Yes.
There's one on the overview, yes. And the one on mind and its potential is Wednesday. Venerable Tendron continues with his class that he's been doing all along, I think,
Tuesdays.
on Tuesdays. Any other questions? Okay, let's do some prayers. And email me if if you have an opinion about when the overview class should be. My email address is tendron108@yahoo.com. Tendron, Tendron 108@yahoo.com. I'm very accessible. Feel free to email me anytime. Okay, so now we want to dedicate. We want to remember that at the beginning we were talking about how we're not doing this just for ourselves. We want to do it to benefit those around us as well as everyone. Because you can imagine if everybody had a clear, loving mind, and mind and heart are the same word in Buddhism, how much better the world would be. So may all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless power, and may people think of benefit. For as long as faith remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Nana, can you go to page, I think it's two,
Throat like.
yeah, I know. That's the rule, yeah. What page is the other dedications? I think it's like 241 or something. Let me see.
What book are you referring to?
It's a gold prayer book, which usually is handed out, but it's not at the moment. So, okay, there we go at that top of the page, or no, that's not it. You were there a minute ago. No, this is under dedications. I can find it. Stop at the top of this page. Keep going. Okay, that's not it. Next page. Might be, yeah. Is that the next page?
241.
241? Ah, yes. This verse. Okay. This is something I think we should say these days. Okay, because of all the merits of the 3 times created by me, all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and other sentient beings, may there be no wars, famines, disease, quarreling, fighting, and unhappiness. May there be great prosperity, and may everything needed be easily obtained. May all the human beings in the world be guided by spiritual leaders teaching only Dharma, and may everyone enjoy the happiness of Dharma. Now, that's it. That's it. Some people don't pay any attention to the conductor. It's just easy, but no, it's the trouble, it's like really difficult. So we now go the long life prayers, but also I want to say about that Dharma, that part about may all beings only meet the Dharma. Dharma just means the teachings that lead you out of suffering. Doesn't matter whose teachings it is. It doesn't mean just the Buddha's teachings. It's actions of body, speech, and mind that lead you, don't create the cause of suffering, and lead you out of suffering. So just have to make that point. Okay. For His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful, crazy, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until the far ends. And for the swift return of the founder of these centers around the world, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losam father and son, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you want the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, from other living beings who suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the eagles, the Bodhicitta of the children of the victorious one, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for punishment of the faithful. So that prayer was written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama to help us create the cause to recognize the reincarnation of Lama Zopa Rinpoche quickly. He supposedly is born and living in Nepal. So now we just need to recognize who he is. So anyway, that's it. Thank you very much.